Here's a question that I would like to pass along to Jason and all of you, but Jason first, because it was asked in the live chat, and it fits well with Nate's response. What do you think would have happened had Jimbo Fisher stayed at Florida State?
I don't think Florida State has 4 straight disappointing seasons. I think we've talked about this before. I think you could see the start in 2015, start 2016, like it's starting to go in that direction. I think probably if he sticks around and doesn't quit on the team around the 2017 season and doesn't officially abandon ship like a true scumbag and leave before the regular finale against Louisiana Monroe, I think probably in 2018 we're probably an 8-4, 7-5 team. I think we have winning seasons, but I think you see a downhill slide.
Really?
Yes.
The guy's too good a recruiter. Had he been invested just like he was earlier, they would be fine. Clemson's a high standard based on what they've accomplished. So I don't know if he would have kept up with Clemson. I don't know that. But they would be finishing in the top 15, in the nation. If Jimbo Fisher,
you were right.
That's what he's doing at Texas A&M.
He was out there recruiting everyone in the 2010 recruiting class, 2011. Oh, no, wait, he wasn't. Those were guys like Mark Stoops, DJ Elliott. Those were these assistants that were going out there and recruiting. When Jimbo had to start doing more of the recruiting, you see the downhill slide. It's a fact, Mark. We've talked about it. I said we'd have a winning record. I get that you guys all think Jimbo's the greatest coach ever.
I don't think he's the greatest coach ever, but he knows what the hell he's doing, and he's gone to Texas A&M, and their recruiting is shot through the roof.
And what is there? And how many SEC championships?
Can I say something?
Absolutely, Nate.
Go ahead.
Can
Back me up on this one?
Okay, so let me ask you one question, a part of your question. That does Andy Miller and Jimbo get along after? No. So that plays a role. So if Andy Miller and Jimbo cannot have their off the field issues, I think Florida State turns it back around. Because I think Florida State, if they get the stuff that Jimbo wanted, we can talk about that. But I am in a little bit of an agreement with Jason that the seeds have been planted in 2014 with a lack of accountability, recruiting misses, and that wasn't Jimbo. Jimbo, I disagree with Jason that when Jimbo took over, that was Jimbo, that was Coach Coley, that was Damian Craig. Jimbo's a hell of a recruiter. What did him in was trusting Tim Brewster. What did him in was trusting Tim Brewster to take over the recruiting, to head that, spear that, and then for this guy to think he's going to land everyone, and then not to have plan Bs. Okay? They didn't have plan Bs when it was Coach Brewster because he thought they were getting everyone. And that's when you saw the recruiting misses. That does land on Jimbo a little bit. I think Jimbo is an elite recruiter. I think Jimbo is amongst the top 3 or 4 coaches in the country as a recruiter. But in terms of Florida State, where they would be, I do think that they would have struggled for a little bit because they did a poor job on some evaluations and development, and they had some stuff with the off-field stuff going on. We all know about it. I do think, though, that Florida State would have gotten back. I don't think they slide 4 years in a row. I think Jimbo, a dialed-in Jimbo, is one of the top 5 coaches in the country, in my opinion. I do agree. I do agree he's a piece of crap for how he ended it.
Right. And I do think the recruiting aspect, to kind of say it, my beef with it is that I think the problem Jimbo did, and I'll say this about Bobby Bowden. Bobby Bowden, this is one of his weaknesses when he came in the recruiting towards the 2000 era. We talked about this earlier. The best recruiting is in the state of Florida. You recruit South Florida. You recruit Orlando. You recruit Tampa. You recruit Jacksonville. If you get the state of Florida, you don't have to worry about the rest of the country as much. Jimbo, starting with the 2014 class, the 2015 class, started to move away from recruiting South Florida. He started to move away from recruiting a lot of the areas in the state of Florida and went for guys that were a little bit more national. That's where you start to see the downfall, and that's where you start to see other schools come in. You start to see Alabama. I'm not comparing Florida State to Alabama. Alabama is in a different class right now, but Alabama came into South Florida and got guys that in the past, Jerry Jeudy was a guy who was choosing between Alabama and Florida State. In the past, Jerry Jeudy would have probably gone to Florida State at that point, and he's going off to Alabama. You've got Alabama coming and getting guys from schools that used to just be pipelines to Florida State in both the 90s and the early 2000s, and even the early 2010s with Jimbo was here. So, Jimbo is a very good coach. I will 100% give him credit as a very good coach. I think that you start to see it. You started to see it losing those games, losing that Georgia Tech game. It wasn't just the fact that we lost to Georgia Tech in 2015 on a blocked field goal return for a touchdown. There's no reason that game should have come down to that point. There's no reason we should have lost half those games in 2015, 2016, 2017 that we did. I get that you had injuries. I get that you had other things. But there's no reason that Florida State should have been in that conversation where we're losing to NC State in 2017. When we're getting blown out by 32 points to Boston College in 2017. There's no reason for any of these things to be happening. So that's why I'm saying I don't think we are back to that 29-game winning streak in 2012, 2013, 2014. But I think we're better than we were. That's why I said I think 8-4 is probably where we're at that point.
And Florida State too at that time, if Texas A&M doesn't go in there and kind of distract Jimbo a little bit, and I mean offering that kind of money, you're just not going to turn that down. You get to go have the capabilities of going to the SEC, including with having that SEC money for his facilities, which was a big thing. But there's a lot of disagreements going on inside of the program more than anything. But Jimbo was kind of back on his wave again of recruiting an insane amount of talent. I mean, looking at that 2017 class, Cam Akers, Marvin Wilson, you also got Kane Doe, Kane LeBourne, looking at Hamza Nasruddin too, Tamarion Terry, and then obviously before it, you had Landon Dickerson in the 2016 class, Brian Burns, Malik Henry was coming in. Jimbo was back in his bag. I mean, he was ready to roll and, everything was going to set off, but it kind of, fell off, and that's what happens. But it stinks the way that goes down.
All right, we're going to end this on a high note. Step away for a second.
One more thing.
Go ahead,
The reason for the decline for a few years was what Logan just mentioned his name. A guy like Malik Henry, Florida State did a poor job recruiting quarterback, and they had so many issues at recruiting the most important position in college football. And that's why I think you see a fall off.
Well, I think it's also, too, though, you weren't expecting to have what happened. I mean, you're looking at, you had a gigantic class of quarterbacks because you're about to have Malik Henry. You're going to have DeAndre Francois. You're going to have DeAndre Johnson, too. And, those three were going to be on your team at the same time. And then what happens? Malik Henry falls off. He ends up being a complete, a letdown inside the program and isn't good with teammates, isn't good that he traveled far away from home. And then obviously we know what happened with DeAndre Johnson and then DeAndre Francois. So, not only maybe it was just bad recruiting on who you were getting, but, so there were some bad things that went on with that. You also had Bailey Hockman coming into the 2017 class too, James Blackman.
Hey, don't insult left-handed people, okay? Be good to lefties.
It was a complete, but that whole time right there, that time period is tough. You lose two of those guys. I mean, Malik Henry was supposed to be the next, that next Jameis-esque quarterback at FSU, and that falls apart. And then you're like, okay, well, I still have Johnson, or I still have Francois, and Francois is still a very talented guy, but there was so many things that was going on, inside the locker room and, off the field that became a distraction for him and his growing as a player that sucked.